Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful and underrated features in Claude Code, output styles. We'll learn how to engineer exactly how Claude communicates, moving beyond simple chats to creating advanced, project-level CSS, HTML, and Markdown styles that govern every document Claude generates. Let's get started. Let's start by defining what output styles are. What are they? They are dedicated configuration files that dictate exactly how Claude Code structures and delivers its responses. The basics are simple. Inside the Claude Code CLI, you type /output style to select a format. While there are built-in options like explanatory or learning, the real magic happens when we build our own. Why do we need this? Because constantly repeating format this as a table or use bullet points in every prompt wastes time and valuable context tokens. How does it work under the hood? When you activate a style, Claude literally swaps out its default software engineering system prompt and replaces it with your custom style instructions. In our deep dive, you'll see how this shifts your workflow from explicitly begging for formats to defining a permanent, implicit semantic structure that Claude follows flawlessly. Looking at this flowchart, we see the traditional flow versus the styled flow. When you submit a user prompt, it hits the active output style decision node. If you have no style, you get standard prose. But if you route through a custom style, the green node, Claude applies your tailored structure and tone automatically, resulting in highly consistent document generation every single time. To build our own styles, we must understand their anatomy. What is a custom style file? It's a standard Markdown document, but it's split into two crucial parts. The basics: it starts with YAML formatter at the very top, enclosed by dashes, containing a description. Below that is the Markdown body containing your rules. Why this specific structure? Because Claude Code reads the YAML description to populate your CLI menu, but it feeds the Markdown body directly to the LLM's system prompt. How do you write it? You create clear headers like communication style, response format, and tone. Look at the sample code on the slide. It's incredibly straightforward. For our deep dive, remember that this file overrides Claude's default brain. You must use imperative, direct language. Don't ask nicely. Command exactly how headers, lists, and paragraphs should be rendered. This diagram breaks down the file anatomy. Our stylename.md file splits into two paths. The top path is the YAML formatter, providing the description for the CLI menu. The bottom path is the Markdown body, which branches out to define your format rules, tone guidelines, and structure requirements. This clean separation ensures the CLI and the LLM both get exactly what they need. Where you save your style files is just as important as what's inside them. This brings us to scoping. What is it? Scoping determines if your style is global or project level. The basics are simple. Global styles live in your hidden home directory, while project styles live right inside your codebase. Why the distinction? Because your personal preference for dark mode CSS should be available everywhere, but your company's strict API documentation standards should be locked to that specific repository. How do you apply it? Place files in /.claude/output-styles/for-global or /.claude/output-styles/for your project. Our deep dive reveals a powerful feature: project styles always override global styles. By committing these files to Git, you guarantee that every engineer on your team automatically uses the exact same output standards when they use Claude Code. This mind map visualizes the two scoping strategies. From the root, we branch left to global scope, stored in your home directory for personal preferences that apply everywhere. We branch right to project scope, stored in your local repo. Notice the key advantages here. Project scope establishes team standards, is shared via Git, and critically, overrides global settings if there's a conflict. Let's look at an incredibly powerful configuration: forcing structured YAML output. What is this? It's an output style that completely strips away Claude's conversational prose, forcing it to reply exclusively in valid YAML. The basics involve commanding Claude to use strict nesting and key value pairs. Why on earth would we do this? Because YAML transforms communication. Instead of reading paragraphs, the formatting itself carries logical meaning. How? We create a YAML-concise.md file and instruct Claude: no filler, no transitions, only valid YAML. Look at the sample code. You instantly see the task, approach, and target files. In our deep dive, we realize that when Claude outputs nested YAML, it's actually encoding architectural dependencies. It shifts our focus from reading sequential text to analyzing interconnected, machine-parsable components. It's a game changer for senior engineers planning complex refactors. Here is the sequence of a YAML-styled interaction. The user prompts Claude to fix authentication. Claude intercepts this, applies the strict YAML concise rules, and instead of writing a conversational essay, it returns pure, valid YAML. The user immediately reads the hierarchical task dependencies, understands the exact blast radius of the fix, and approves the action. We can take this much further. Let's look at generating CSS and HTML documents. What does this mean? We can use output styles to force Claude to generate fully styled, browser-ready web pages. The basics: you define your exact HTML5 structures and CSS requirements directly inside the style file. Why do this? To standardize your team's documentation or internal reports. You get visually stunning, consistent artifacts without ever writing the boilerplate yourself. How? You write rules like always use semantic HTML, embed CSS in style tags, and use a dark background with monospace fonts. In our deep dive, this demonstrates that output styles aren't just for terminal text. You can literally define a complete visual aesthetic like a retro ASCII blog or a sleek corporate dashboard, and Claude will wrap every single response in that perfect, custom UI. This flow illustrates document generation. Our output style, let's call it retro blog, enforces two main branches: HTML5 constraints and CSS requirements. It dictates the use of semantic tags and specific dark mode styling. These branches merge into the orange node, outputting a complete, browser-ready document straight from your Claude Code terminal. Let's push the boundary. We are now automating workflow behaviors directly in our styles. What is this? It's embedding executable logic right into the output definition. The basics: we move beyond just formatting text and actually instruct Claude to perform file operations automatically. Why is this critical? Because constantly prompting Claude to save this to a file causes massive developer fatigue. Embedding the instruction automates it permanently. How? You just add one line to your style, always write the generated HTML to outputguide.html, and open it in the browser. For our deep dive, realize that this completely blurs the line between a formatting style and an autonomous agentic workflow. Every time Claude answers a question under this style, it autonomously generates the code, writes the file to disk, and opens your browser. It's a fully integrated pipeline. Look at this state diagram tracking the automated workflow. Claude begins in the generate content state. It transitions into applying style formatting, where it formats the HTML and injects the CSS. But it doesn't stop there. Because of our embedded logic, it automatically transitions to auto-write file, saving the document to your hard drive, and then transitions to open browser, presenting the final result seamlessly. Here is a real-time, highly practical use case: parallel specialized sessions. What is this? It's running multiple terminal instances of Claude Code simultaneously, each governed by a totally different output style. The basics: you open two terminal tabs in the exact same Git repository. Why do this? Because debugging a database requires a drastically different cognitive approach than writing a blog post. If you do them in the same window, you create context pollution. How do we execute this? In Terminal A, you select your YAML concise style. In Terminal B, you select your HTML document style. Our deep dive reveals the immense value here. You have just transformed Claude from a single assistant into a specialized engineering team. You use the YAML instance for surgical, architectural debugging, while simultaneously asking the HTML instance to draft beautiful, client-ready release notes. This architecture shows parallel sessions in action. Both terminals share the same Git repository. Terminal 1 uses the YAML concise style, adopting the role of security and architecture, outputting machine-parsable insights. Terminal 2 uses the HTML docs style, adopting the role of tech writer, outputting browser-ready docs. It is the ultimate multi-agent workflow orchestrated entirely by output styles. To wrap up, let's review the best practices for output styles. First, keep it clean. Remember, these styles replace the core system prompt. Do not overload them with contradictory rules or Claude will get confused. Second, use version control. Always commit your project-level output styles to Git. This guarantees that every engineer on your team produces documentation to the exact same standard. Third, use role-based naming. Name your files DevOps YAML or TechWriter HTML so your teammates know exactly what persona they are adopting. Finally, iterate and refine. Test your styles with simple prompts. If Claude ignores your CSS, make your instructions more imperative. You now have the power to build a customized, highly structured AI environment. I invite you to like, subscribe, and visit quicktechie.com for premium certification prep, including Q&A banks, full ebooks, audiobooks, full-length training, and interview guides. Thank you for watching. Our final mind map summarizes style mastery. We must use version control to ensure team alignment. We must write clean rules using an imperative tone. We leverage scoping, knowing project styles override global ones, allowing us to run task-specific terminals. Finally, we unlock automation by embedding file saves and auto-rendering UI elements right in the style file. Master these, and your workflow will be unstoppable.